What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Season 2 has me incredibly worried for Overwatch 2 because it seems like they're committing to a lot of terrible strategies that turned Season 1 a turn for the worse. In a previous video, I talked about how Blizzard did not keep their promises. Surprise, surprise. They said we'd get more frequent balancing, communication, the game would be treated like a live service. None of that came out to be true. They made the game worse than it performed in beta in many ways. The meta isn't great, and counterpicking is way too strong considering this is supposed to be a game where you don't feel the need to have all the heroes. You can't have it both ways, Blizzard. The game can't be incredibly counterpick heavy and paywall heroes, otherwise the game becomes pay to win. So not only is that a concern, with their wait and see attitude towards making proactive changes, we're seemingly going to be doomed to always be playing catch up to correct the old problems in time for new problems to emerge. One of the best examples is Genji, a character that was dominating in the Ana meta because he both syncs with and sort of attacks well when they're on the enemy team. Then we went into a Kiriko meta who benefits characters that want to stand and deliver as opposed to flank. Nano boost on a flanker is much more effective, whereas a more stationary target that plays in Kitsune Rush is better with Kiriko, and she has the mobility to dodge and duel Genji anyway. So even if they didn't nerf Genji, he probably would have been worse in this meta anyway. And they've already said that they want to look at the DPS passive, which is also another reason why he got overly buffed season 1, but then won't compensate to revert the nerf they put into him originally. Then their logic on Sojourn doesn't make any sense either, because it's not like they overly buff other skill shot characters for lower tier players to get great value out of anyway. A lot of just terrible reasoning and poor decision making, which all of this was kind of expected from the Overwatch team in Overwatch 1, so I guess we should have expected it now. But the problem is when it becomes pay to win, and we haven't really felt the full ramification of this yet in the game, because so many current players either got the login bonus for season 1, which gifts you, quote unquote, Sojourn and Junker Queen, or they also owned Overwatch 1, which gets you those and Kiriko. In season 2, we'll finally get an actual paywall hero. Ramattra, we expect, is going to require level 55 of the battle pass or an instant unlock by paying your $10. And although he will have a 2-week competitive lockout at the start of season 2 where they attempt to balance him, that's not enough for a casual player to get the hero. And as you move on through more hero additions, remember, the season 1 login ends in season 1. So there's multiple heroes now that any new player subsequent coming down the line won't have access to, including Sojourn, Kiriko, and Junker Queen. They'll have to do challenges to unlock those old heroes. We don't know how hard it is to get those. And certainly at least 2 of the 3 that I just mentioned are incredibly meta, counterpick depending type heroes that dominate the game competitively. Season 2 is where the rubber hits the road with these claims and strategies Blizzard have set out. And I don't think they're in any way ready to make the changes necessary to actually fix this. Because season 1, there's the honeymoon period, a lot of players just trying it out for the first time. Season 2, it's going to get serious because the gap between the haves and the have-nots with the hero roster is going to be felt palpably. Now, of course, I was more okay with this when we had the beta version of the game where multiple team comps were meta at the same time, which is a very difficult thing for Overwatch to do. And I thought, okay, fine, they solved it. They figured it out. They understand how to balance this game, but then they started adding things and make changes for change's sake alone. Now they're just straight up behind. They don't have the data to make informed decisions for the future, and because they refuse to do proactive changes that coincide with a very obvious combination. For example, even they knew Hog would be busted with Kiriko in the game. They just have a wait and see attitude about mixing up the hero hierarchy. And if they're going to have that attitude, the game badly needs a draft mode yesterday, because otherwise, how else are we going to not be victims to pay to win escalating in the game as seasons go on and more new players come that don't have access to a increasingly sized roster of extra heroes? Mind you, the extra heroes are often the strongest. So it's not only, okay, well, there's 4 to 6 heroes or whatever in the next year that a new player won't have access to. They're also like often mainly the best ones for the given role or need. Now, let's talk specifically about Ramattra for a second. My first worry about Ramattra is that he's actually too weak. And I'm saying this just based on looking at his kit on paper. A transformation do everything style tank is going to need to be broken in order to be applicable. Like if he comes out balanced, he just won't be played because team comps in Overwatch want to hard sync on an idea and cover each other's weaknesses with combinations in the comp. Heroes that do everything need to be broken in order to work, because whereas a hero like Sigma, who you can say has a little bit of everything, he only really works on his best maps and takes quite a lot of setting up to get to work. Because there's better brawlers than the kit Ramattra has listed, like the numbers for his brawling would have to be better than Orisa and Reinhardt for him to be better than Orisa and Reinhardt, or even Junker Queen. And then for his shielding and poking, that is unique, being able to put up a shield and poke a target from range, but Winston can do that, Sigma can do that, and they also can do lots of other things. And while Ramattra might be more brawly than Sigma, Sigma's damage is nuts, and Winston's mobility is nuts. So what does Ramattra even have on paper that's separates him? At the moment, I think Ramattra is going to be weak. Just guessing. But we always know developers don't want new heroes to be weak. So they're probably going to buff him to make him good. But that then leads to the pay to win problem, because then we have to have him in order to compete, because it's going to create the problem I'm saying. I'm trying to predict this multiple steps in advance for us, okay? A lot of the positivity that I was happy with in the beta has just been completely undone, and they're committing to terrible strategies that are clearly not going to work. Now, to see this from the other side, the ways that the game doesn't become pay to win is if the skill execution of the strongest heroes aren't oppressive for most players, because the top level players are going to get everything anyway, just based on playtime required to get to a high level to begin with. So Sojourn is an example that I don't think is as egregious as people think, because it is just the case that most players can't really abuse her to the extent of her skill ceiling. What I'm more afraid of is a character like Junkrat or Moira to come out, who's an easy route to value that some players have that others don't. That would be the worst case scenario as far as I'm concerned, because it would be a new character that doesn't even get played at the higher tiers, at least not really, which is where they do focus a percentage of their balancing, or at least they say they do, that could run amok for the average player, and nobody wants that. It's not good for anybody. Now, talking to some friends, Samito thinks that the Ramattra ult is perhaps this type of ability because you just pop it, run at things, and everybody falls over. I think the rest of his kit looks hard enough to master that the skill floor will be high enough that you won't feel like you need Ramattra, because just pick Rein, just pick Rein and walk forward at 70% of the ranks, and that's the tank that works best for most players. Like if you want to pick to win, right, rather than pick to have fun. The shield tanks are incredibly powerful, and Ramatra's shield doesn't move, which means you're going to have to very accurately place it and manage it, and well, that's not a skill that most players have. So I'm not so worried about this hero in particular, but the growing list of heroes and how whatever wacky balance changes they might do down the line, which don't get approved by anyone, it seems, other than Blizzard themselves, based on their data. But we're having the same problem we had in Overwatch 1, where they don't seem to account for the new things they add. Right? So adding Kiriko automatically was going to make Genji worse, as I outlined earlier. Making Hog good automatically makes Winston worse. Him existing in the game with the 30% ult swap passive that all the roles have means there's not really a punishment to just pick a counterpick. And the more we have that in the game, and the more there's a unaccessible list of heroes, like try to pay attention to this for a moment. In Season 2, Kiriko will require a challenge unlock for new players that come in. It's a free-to-play game. New players are coming all the time. This will happen. That competitive players, if that challenge isn't easy enough, it is quite possible that competitive players won't have a Kiriko to enable their Hog, which is so clearly the most broken thing in the game at this moment. Now, we don't know what the next thing will be because it's hard to tell, and Blizzard doesn't listen to anyone's advice that tries to steer them in what direction it'll go, be it pros, commentators, analysts, or anybody. They instead force us to play on broken patches to gain enough data to know the things they could have listened to ahead of time. This is something I'll be tracking, and I certainly hope they make changes to Season 2. This is such a big opportunity for Blizzard to control the narrative of this situation, to change the perspective and optics on how they've handled this problem, from being stingy to being generous, from looking incompetent to then becoming competent. Whatever the first patch that's coming through with Season 2 does, what I don't want to hear is that we have to wait months, potentially, or a full month, before they make another hotfix. No. We're going to know what the meta is in a week. And if the gameplay sucks, Fix it. What's this wait and see nonsense? That wasn't how they responded in beta, which is what made all of us praise them so much. Let's just list a few things that they could do to improve this. The free track for heroes needs to be fairer. Even throwing a bone to this, I think would go a long way with players. But more importantly to me, the balance of the game has to be more responsive. Because I don't like the game we've been playing now. At least not the decisions they've made. Like, I still enjoy playing, and once you find the heroes that work for you in a given meta, even if you don't like it, you can have fun with it. But I almost resent that I have to do that. I resent the new rules of the game where you have to just anticipate to be hard countered, so don't get countered, forehead. So for me, balancing is even above that. And if we're not gonna get balancing, we better start getting talk of a draft mode real quick. Because the hero roster is only getting longer, and the very clear OP combinations that get formed create gaps in power that are clear, obvious to everyone, and make the game unfun to play. Bookmark this video. Let's see what Blizzard does with this preemptive call out. Will season 2 be a change from the sour taste season 1 left in our mouths, or are they going to live up to the high bar they've set for themselves? Let me know your thoughts on any of this in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.